It takes a special trip out of the city, away from all the lights and noise of life, to be able to see the stars. My son, Skylar, won't lie down on the ground next to me, but he does scramble into my lap when I lay on my back. He begins to grind his head annoyingly into my chest, but he's distracted by the flood of stars overhead. "What's that?" he asks, pointing. It's a fair question for someone who spends most of the year going to bed before the sun is completely set. "Those are stars," I tell him. I consider how much more to share with him beyond their name. "They're huge flaming balls of fire," I say, knowing how much he'll like that part. "Hotter than even the stove or the barbecue." A hot barbecue somehow seems more accessible to a 3-year-old than millions of degrees. I know that even I, as an all-knowing adult, have no concept of hot beyond a few hundred degrees. They're very far off, more than billions or trillions of miles away. My goodness, how many orders of magnitude am I off by? And how often am I simply wrong when I go into these brief lectures about life and the universe? I'm filling my son's head with, yes, imagination, but these facts that are only going to confuse him later in life? I really should have done some research before we came out here. The light from stars takes a very long time to reach us. I reach up towards a bright point. That light could have left that star billions of years ago and is only just reaching us. If we could look at that light with a super powerful telescope, theoretically, we'd be looking back in time at what happened on that star billions of years ago. That star might not even exist anymore. Ouch! I've obviously lost Skylar somewhere because he resumes grinding his head into my chest. I roll over and send him laughing onto the grass. Then he grabs our flashlight and runs off into the darkness just like I told him not to. I rub my chest. It's not the only part of my body that hurts because of my son. My head pounds from lack of sleep. My shoulders throb, my back never drops below a dull ache. And then there are my wilting dreams, the ones that I've put off for 6 months, a year, 2 years. Sometimes I suspect my son thinks I exist only to play with him or pick up his messes. The idea that I might have my own life and dreams simply hasn't occurred to him yet, and probably won't for at least another 2 decades. I watch as the flashlight in Skylar's hand becomes more of a distant point, as if he were a star himself, 30 years distant from me. Was I like this? A wild, crazy little boy with no clue about the sacrifices my parents made or the gifts they shared with me? Is it only now that I have my own son that I suspect my parents might have been very different from the way I remember them, especially my mother? She gave up her career to stay at home with my brother and me. Perhaps she wasn't just being petty and mean when she didn't let me do what I wanted to do. Perhaps there were actual reasons why I didn't get a new bike or wasn't sent to an Ivy League college. Perhaps, and it's a big perhaps, my parents were real people with their own lives and dreams. I look up at the stars again, as if to look at my mother and father. So this is what they looked like, felt like, dreamed like when they were my age. Not exactly, never exactly, but closer. It's an amazing feeling to be able to look back in time, and my son is the only one here to share my discovery with. But I can't share it with him, can I? For we have no son of his own for us to look at. I think of calling my mother, and then I wonder who she is today. I have an inkling of what it was like for her to have raised me as a 3-year-old. What's it like to have an adult child? How do I still misunderstand her, unknowingly trample her dreams today, hurt her with my lack of experience? If I asked her, could she tell? If she told me, could I understand? Or do I have to wait another 30 years until I can finally see, through my own children, who she is today? I sit up to check on Skylar. The beam from the flashlight seems to be getting larger. From the subdued whimper I can hear, I suspect he's had enough of wandering through the dark by himself. He doesn't stop until he hits me full tilt. And the two of us tumble back into the grass, our eyes filled with stars.